Have you solved these two questions, guys? (32, 33). In both the cases, the answer will be C, C. Okay. And 59, the answer will be 71. If you want me to discuss any of the question in this or any other question regarding size reduction, you can mention. We will discuss that, otherwise no problem. Okay. So in question number 59, if you have solved or you will solve whenever, there is one thing which you will see: 100 tons per hour of a rock feed of which 80% pass, blah blah, whatever it is. So from 2.54 mm to 1.27 mm, they are saying that power required is 100 kilowatt. Okay, capacity is 100 tons per hour. You have to calculate the power required for 5.08 mm to 2.54 mm for the same capacity, that is 100 tons per hour. And when you solve, you will get some value about 70.7 or 70.6, something like that. But since we have to answer that to the nearest integer, so that will be 71 kilowatt. Okay, so here one logic which should be clear in your mind, that you can use any law of size reduction to cross verify that thing from 5.08 to 2.54. Similarly, if I talk about 10.16 to 5.08 mm, the power required will be less than 71 kilowatt. Similarly, if you see for the power 1.27 mm to 0.63 something, power required will be greater than 100 kilowatt. Okay, it means the logic is, which I want to tell you, for the same capacity means and same reduction ratio, the power required in coarse crushers will be less than that of required in fine grinders, and that will be less than that of required in okay. So power for the same capacity and same reduction ratio, the power required for crushing will be maximum, will be higher for in tertiary crushers, in ultra fine grinders, as compared to all other, okay, and lower for the coarse crushers. Okay, so this is the point which should be clear in your mind. So if you have, if this is clear, mention, otherwise no problem. Oh. This logic, is it clear? Yes, no? Yes, sir, please discuss 33. Again, अरे अभी तुमने पहली बार भी डिस्कस नहीं किया 33, अगेन क्या? कोई बात नहीं, it happens. Funny thing happens. So 32 and 33, if you see those two questions, it is given that 1000 kg per hour of a feed is sent in a grinder where the size is reduced from 10 mm to 1 mm. This is some grinder. 1000 kg per hour, or I can simply say 1 ton per hour of feed is going in from 10 mm to 1 mm. Some power will be required, obviously. Okay. Now, this was the question statement. Now, in question number 32, it was given. Now, market demands the product of 0.5 mm. So, just try to understand, huh? If I will send the same feed 1 ton per hour, what will happen? From 10 mm to 1 mm, some power is required, let's say P. Okay. Now I want to reduce the size from 10 mm to 0.5 mm. Means product size is less than this. So if the feed rate is same, so obviously the power required has to be more. The power required has to be more than this. Okay. This is the logic. But in the question statement, it is clear that for the same power input, I want the power input to be same. And since I want power input to be same, so what to do? So obviously it means the flow rate has to be changed. And let's say now it is M2 tons per hour. Okay. And obviously that has to decrease. For the same feed rate, if reduction ratio increases, power required has to increase. But if the power required is same, then obviously feed rate has to reduce. Okay, so using Bond's law here, as it is given in the question, then Bond's law is, the system obeys the Bond's law. So according to Bond's law, we know that P over m dot is equal to Kb times of square root of dPb minus square root of dPa. Okay, so for first case you can put the values. Power required is something, flow rate is 1, this is Kb unknown, 1 minus 10. As we have in Bond's law, if this is in kilowatt and tons per hour, then it has to be in mm. So this is already in mm. For second case, let's say the flow rate is m2, power required is same P. Kb will remain same, product diameter is 0.5 now and feed diameter is same, 10. Okay, so after rearranging this you will get M2 and you will see M2 is coming out to be 0.6227 tons per hour. Okay, or according to the options you can write it as 623 kg per hour. 32 done. Now 33. For the same power input, flow rate has reduced. Okay, now 33 says if I want to restore back the flow rate, means I want this flow rate again to be 1 ton per hour, 1000 kg per hour, then one additional grinder is used. Okay, one additional grinder is used. Okay. And I have two options, two configurations. First, I am using that additional grinder either in series or in parallel. So since I am using additional grinder, so obviously power required will increase. So they are asking out of these two configuration in which additional power required will be more or less. Okay. So in case of series, here I am sending 10 mm feed and finally I want 0.5 mm product. Okay. And if I want the product rate to be 1 ton per hour again, then I have to send 1 ton per hour rate feed throughout. At a steady state, it will be same, 1 ton per hour, no accumulation. Okay, so in this case, let's say when 1 ton hour is sent, obviously initial power was P as it is. Okay, now the additional power required is P dash here, suppose. Okay, this P was same as previous one. So here, let's say the product rate is X. After first grinder, the size of the product is suppose X. It could be anything, let's say a random value, a variable X. Okay. So when you apply the Bond's law on first case, first grinder here, it will be P upon m dot, that is 1, is equal to Kb square root of X minus 1 upon square root of 10. Same, if you apply the Bond's law for the second grinder, it will be P dash upon m dot Kb, product diameter 0.5, feed diameter, for this feed is X. Okay. So here, if you want to calculate the total power required, total power Okay, what will be the total power? Okay, I cannot compare additional power directly. Let's compare that in terms of total power. Okay, because total power will be the sum of the initial power which we are already sending plus the additional power. Okay, so here the total power P, let's say PT in first case, or P1 will be P plus P dash. Okay, let's multiply by m dot here and add them. So you will get finally m dot kb 1 over square root of 0.5 minus 1 over square root of 10. That will be the total power required in series arrangement. Okay, now let's get back to the parallel arrangement. 10, here I want 0.5 mm. Since crushing takes place only in the equipment, so here as well 0.5, here as well 0.5, only then the mixture will have 0.5 mm dia. Suppose flow rate is 1 ton per hour, here it is reduces m1 and m2. Here power is P and P double dash. Okay, you can use any other notation as well, no problem. So when you apply the Bond's law for first grinder, it will be P upon m1 dot is equal to kb, product dia 0.5, feed dia same because feed is just getting distributed, so feed dia will remain same. Similarly on second grinder, P double dash over m2 is equal to kb 1 over square root of 0.5 minus 1 over square root of 10. Okay, so when you add them here and you want to calculate the total power, let's say P2, so it will be m1 multiply m2 multiply, all these things are common, so on right hand side we will have m1 plus m2. m1 plus m2 is equal to 1 ton per hour, so it will be like this, 0.5 minus 10. Okay, so here you can see the total power required in series as well as in are same, and if total power required is same, so it means the additional power required will also be same. So the correct answer will be option C. Is it clear now? Shivansh. Khyati, in question number 59, your answer is coming out to be 70.49. So the nearest integer for 70.49 will be 70. Okay, and that will also be in the range, because for this question 59, the range was 69 to 72. Okay. Anyways. Yes, okay, wonderful. So this was something about the size reduction, and I hope the logic of power consumption is also clear to all of you. Okay, now next we will talk about the another topic, that is mixing. So I am not going in much details for this topic actually in the theoretical part, because whatever I have discussed in the class, that is already the summarized way. Okay, so for mixing of solid, one thing should be clear: what is mixing? Mixing is the dispersion of one component to another, interaction of two or more components, that is the mixing. Okay, what is the purpose of the mixing? The purpose is to make the mixture homogeneous. Okay, means, see, I have a blank cup, empty cup, sorry, blank थोड़ी होता है, cup empty होता है. I have one empty cup, let's add some coffee and let's add some sugar. When you add them, okay, what will happen? You are adding two components, coffee and sugar. Okay, if you like tea, you can add tea as well, as I prefer tea over coffee, so I am adding tea and sugar. If you just keep that as it is, okay, this is tea, this is sugar, you add them, and now you start to take a sip. Then you will see that with every sip in that tea or coffee, whatever it is, the level of sweetness is changing, okay, basically increasing, okay. But and to make it uniform, what you do, you just mix that thing, okay, you just agitate that with the help of a spoon or any other thing. Or even if you keep that tea and sugar combination for a longer period of time, it will be again, level of sweetness will become same. But obviously, as we can't keep that for a longer time, otherwise tea and coffee, whatever it is, it will be cold, and cold cold tea, cold coffee are costlier, okay. So इतना सारा पैसा कौन खर्च करेगा, है ना, as compared to hot tea and hot coffee. So means the taste will be, it will not be of no use, ठीक है, मतलब किसी यूज की नहीं होगी, तो कोई मतलब नहीं है. So what we are doing, we are just trying to distribute the sugar throughout the tea uniformly, okay, so that the every sip will be uniform, it has same level of sweetness, okay. So in the container, just try to understand. Initially I am adding component A, I am adding component B, initially at time t equal to 0, you can see that the distribution will be random, they will be in random distribution. Random distribution means at some part we have the higher concentration of blue particles, some part we have white higher concentration of white particle, somewhere we have the uniform concentration, uniform distribution. So that is the random distribution, okay. And I want the uniform distribution throughout the mixture, throughout the tank. So obviously for that, if I want the uniform distribution, then these particles has to move. I have to change the position of those particles, and when the position of those particles will change, only then you will be able to get the uniform distribution, okay. And to change their position, so to provide the motion in those particles, okay, we will use the agitator. Either we will shake them, okay, like this, okay, or we will provide the heat, so because of the convection that they will move, or we will just use a impeller, okay. So what all these things are doing, when we are using all these things, even if we are using an impeller, what is happening? There is a generation of motion in this mixture particles, and this generation of motion is called agitation, okay. So what is the difference between mixing and agitation? Mixing is the addition of two or more components, or basically to make the mixture homogeneous, but agitation is the generation of motion, induction of motion in the mixture particles, okay. So what is required for mixing? We required agitation. Agitation is not required for the mixing. Mixing is not required for the agitation, but agitation is required for mixing, because if agitation is there, means motion is there between the particle, then they will become homogeneous for sure, means mixing will take place, better mixing will be there, the purpose of the mixing will be solved, okay. So this should be clear in your mind, that mixing is not required for agitation, mixing is not causing agitation, but agitation is required for mixing, or you can say agitation is causing mixing. This is one term. Similarly, second is type of impeller, okay. So I hope all of you are aware with that, propeller, turbine, highly efficient impeller, all that stuff, okay. And based on the flow, there is axial flow and radial flow impeller, okay. If this is the impeller, so when we switch on the impeller, obviously it will generate the motion in the mixture molecules, in the mixture particles of the mixture. If the generation of motion is parallel to the impeller shaft, this is impeller shaft, impeller blade, and this is connected to some motor obviously. Okay, so combination of this motor, impeller shaft and blade is called agitator or agitation device. Okay, so if the motion, generation of motion in mixture particles, in mixture molecules is parallel to the impeller shaft, then that is called axial flow impeller. Just like this ceiling fan which we have in our house, in colleges, in hostels. Okay, if you switch on them, this is their shaft, these are the blades. Okay, and you will see the air movement is downward, vertically downward, that is parallel to the impeller shaft. So this is axial flow impeller. Okay, if the generation of motion is perpendicular to the impeller shaft, then that is called radial flow impeller. Okay, just like the hand fan which we used to have in summer days. Okay, hand fan, hand fan, hand fan, hand fan. Suppose ये hand fan है. Okay, like this I am doing. So movement of air is in this direction, and shaft is this, your hand. This arm is your shaft, forearm. Okay, so movement of air is perpendicular to the shaft. So that is radial flow impeller. The important thing here is power required for mixing. And power required for mixing here we can calculate with the help of a correlation, that is between power number as a function of Reynolds number of mixing, Faraday number, and so on, some other parameters. This is not Reynolds number only, this is Reynolds number of mixing, Faraday number. Okay, power number is defined as P over rho NQ di power 5. Reynolds number of mixing defined as dV rho omega di square n rho over mu. Faraday number is n square di over g. Okay, and here we have a relation between power number and Reynolds number of mixing. अरे यार तुम यहाँ से हटो ना. This is first regime, this is second regime, this is third regime. The first regime is also called laminar flow regime. Third regime is called turbulence flow regime or turbulent flow regime, and second one is transition flow regime. Okay, here one thing should be clear in your mind, that this diagram is for the baffled tank. For baffled tank. Baffled tank means where we are using baffles. Okay, and why we use baffles? Use of baffles. Baffles we use to avoid vortex formation. To avoid vortex formation. What is the meaning of vortex formation? Vortex formation means the formation of whirlpools in a mix during the mixing. Okay, the formation of whirlpools in the mixing tank. Okay, whirlpools means a fixed circular path. Okay, like the experiment you can do at your home as well. There is a rectangular tank filled with water. Okay, maybe the sink in your kitchen or the bathtub or the wash basin, whatever it is, fill that completely up to the top, and in the center there will be some drainage valve, obviously. Okay, so when you open that drainage valve, then you will see water is leaving, obviously, but there is a fixed formation of a circular path in the center. Okay, and you can do the experiment. Just take a very small piece of paper, maybe 1 mm in dia or less than 1 mm in dia, and place that over this. So you will see, until that paper is leaving the tank, before the exit, until it is inside the tank, the paper is moving only on this fixed circular path. Paper is not going anywhere else. It is just moving on this path. Okay. It means if there is a formation of a circular path and I close the drainage valve, then the paper will keep on rotating in this path only. Okay. It will not go here and there. Okay. So that is called vortex formation. And what is the problem we have in this? The problem is, if any molecule get trapped in this path, then it will be overmixed, obviously. Okay, because when a molecule is already there, there is no vacancy, and when there is no vacancy, new molecules cannot enter inside this zone. Okay, when new molecules are not able to enter in this, they will remain outside the circular path, outside the whirlpool, so the degree of mixing will be degraded. Okay, it will be affected. So because some molecules are getting overmixed and some molecules will remain undermixed, so ultimately the overall degree of mixing, the quality of mixing will be not uniform. Okay, so that is the problem we have when vortex formation is there. Okay, so in mixing tank what happened, वहाँ पे तो कोई outlet drainage valve नहीं है, but there we have one impeller. Okay, and in the mixing tank, when that impeller is rotating with high speed, so what happens, a circular path forms around that impeller shaft. That is what we call the vortex formation. Thank you, Balaji. Okay, and to avoid this formation of this fixed circular path, this vortex, we use baffles. Okay, baffles are nothing but just the rectangular plates like this. So when mixtures are moving, they will have collision with these baffles and they will scattered. And after the collision, when they are scattering, obviously they will not follow a fixed path, so formation of vortex will not be there. So understand, Faraday number will come in the picture only when vortex formation is there. If vortex formation is not there, then Faraday number will not come in the picture. Why? Because Faraday number is what? N square di over g. G means gravity force. Okay, so gravity force will come in the picture only and only when we have tides. Tidal waves you must have heard. Okay, or the vortex formation is there. Okay, so that is the reason Faraday number will not come in the picture, because gravity is not there. So this is for the baffled tank, this curve. Okay, but if unbaffled tank is there and for vortex formation is there, okay, so for Faraday number will come in the picture, and if Faraday number will come in the picture, then what will be the tank? For unbaffled tank, the curve between power number and Reynolds number of mixing for laminar region will remain same. Okay, why? Because laminar region means low Reynolds number. Low Reynolds number means molecules, mixture, everything, mixing is taking place, molecules are moving with slow speed, and when they are moving with slow speed, so vortex will not form. Okay, as such, it will form only at high Reynolds number. Okay, so as the Reynolds number increases, see, this is the curve for one Faraday number. This is the curve for another Faraday number. This will be the curve for another Faraday number. This will be the curve for another Faraday number. This will be the curve for another Faraday number. So in turbulent flow regime, we cannot compare baffled tank and unbaffled tank at all, because Faraday number will come in the picture. For different values of Faraday number, you can see this is the curve. But for laminar flow regime, we can easily compare the baffled tank and unbaffled tank, since they have same profile. Okay, this much part is clear, where di is the impeller diameter, means diameter of this impeller blade, n is the impeller speed in rps. Obviously, if all these things are in SI units, impeller diameter, impeller speed, rps, density of mixture, viscosity of the mixture, power required for mixing, all these things are clear. Yes, okay, wonderful. So now that's it. That's all about the mixing. Okay, one thing is there which you can observe from this curve is, like for laminar flow regime, as you can see in the curve, power number चला गया, बढ़िया है, power number, Reynolds number of mixing, 10 to the power 1, 10 to the power 3. So you can see that for laminar flow regime, power number is inversely proportional to 1 upon Reynolds number of mixing, or basically inversely proportional to Reynolds number of mixing. Okay. So here if you put the values, power number is P over rho n cube di power 5. Reynolds number of mixing is di square n rho over mu. So you will see that P is proportional to n square di cube. Means in laminar flow regime, if impeller speed is increased by a factor 2, power will increase by 4. If impeller diameter is increased by 2, power will increase by 8 times. This type of question they ask in GATE exam. ये कितना गंदा हो गया है यार, इस वजह से ये प्रॉब्लम आ रही है. For turbulent flow regime, okay, you can see power number is constant, independent of Reynolds number. So P will be proportional to n cube di power 5. So this is all about the mixing part, guys, which we want to discuss. Okay, and only this kind of question they ask in the GATE exam. Okay, very easy numericals, or for mostly questions were there for 2 marks. Okay, in previous year papers which they have asked. Okay, so from that let's try to do 2-3 numericals. I don't think we need to do those numericals. Okay, आप कर ही सकते हो, सब easy है. ठीक है, यहाँ कोई ऐसा difficult question नहीं है. So, sorry. So if you want to discuss any numerical, you can mention, otherwise it's okay. We will move to the next topic, that is sedimentation. if diameter of vessel is given in case of in place of impeller diameter, then how to solve? Those type of questions they will not ask, because that is the designing of mixing equipment is not in your syllabus. Okay, unfortunately डिजाइनिंग है ही नहीं यार किसी भी चीज की, क्या मजाक बना रखा है गेट एग्जाम का. But I understood which you are talking about for which numerical. Okay, so let's talk about that because before we start the discussion on sedimentation. ठीक है, और उससे एक और क्वेश्चन मुझे याद आया, क्वेश्चन नंबर 31 and 44. So before we start the discussion about sedimentation, let's do question number 31 and 44. You are talking about 44, I know. Okay, so let's try these two questions, guys. I am giving you 5 minutes total for these two numericals. Try to solve them, then we will discuss them if you have any doubt. Okay, and think logically whether we can compare the baffled tank and unbaffled tank, yes or no. Only then. What is the answer in 31? See, let's talk about 44 and I hope that will also help you to solve 33. Okay. In scaling, scaling is one of the important feature in our chemical engineering. Okay, whenever we design any equipment, before we talk about the industrial level equipment, we design that equipment on a laboratory scale. Okay, and we perform our experiments and see whether the results are consistent with the design calculations or not. If they are consistent, then it means our design is perfect and we can scale up that equipment for the industrial use. Okay, so on laboratory scale, the equipment which we have designed, that is called model, and when we scale up that for the industrial purpose, that is called prototype. So when we do this scale up thing, so you must have attended the lecture of dimensional analysis and similitude. So you must know that in scaling up, there are three things which we have to take care in our mind. First, the geometrical similarity, dynamic similarity and kinematic similarity. Okay, geometrical similarity means all the linear dimensions, all the linear geometrical dimensions will scale up by same ratio. If here length is L, here it will be R times of L. Here diameter is D, it will be R times of D. Here impeller dia is Di, here it will be R times of Di. Here width is W, here it will be R times of W, and so on. And what is this R? This R is that ratio. Okay, and that is called the scale up ratio, which you can easily calculate as the volume of prototype to the volume of model entire power 1 by 3. Okay, so from there you can calculate the scale up ratio. So like in question number 44, it is given that the tank is a standard cylinder, means the diameter and height has to be same. So what is the volume of cylinder? That is pi by 4 d cube. It will be pi by 4 d cube. Okay. So volume, the scale up ratio, we can say volume of prototype, or you can say volume after scale up, that will be pi by 4 d2 cube. Volume before scale up or volume of model, pi by 4 d1 cube, power 1 by 3. So R will be equal to d2 upon d1. You can see that in this question. And so the impeller diameter in prototype will be R times of the impeller dia in model. So here you can simply say that di2 upon di1 is equal to R, and that is equal to d2 by d1. That is one thing that should also be clear to you. Okay. So now here in 44, similarly in 31, it is given that baffled tank, diameter of the baffled tank on industrial level is 3 times that of for the laboratory scale tank. But the problem is, one is unbaffled, one is baffled. So can we compare them? That is the question. That is a big question. So for that we have to check their flow regime. If their flow regime is laminar, yes, we can compare them, because we have seen the power number and Reynolds number curve is similar in for baffled and unbaffled tank in laminar flow regime. Okay, so in question number 31 it was given that the regime is laminar flow regime, so we can compare them. And as we can compare them, so if baffled diameter, if the tank diameter is 3 times, so it means the impeller dia is also the 3 times. And if impeller diameter increases by 3 times, the power required in Reynolds low Reynolds number, laminar flow design will also increase by 3 power 3, that is 27 times. As we know, P is proportional to n square di cube. We have seen that. Okay, so our answer will be C, option C, 27 times. Power will increase for 31. Now, if I talk about question number 44, so here they are asking for the equal rate of mass transfer, what will be the ratio of impeller speed? Suppose here it is N1, here it is N2, okay. This is not the geometrical dimension, so it will not increase by R times, okay. So what will be the impeller speed? C. For equal rate of mass transfer, one thing should be clear in your mind. For equal rate of mass transfer, that is the parameter of designing, okay. This is the question of designing, and you can see this is the solved example of Gin Copley's book. If you see the Gin Copley's book, if you know here, if you in that book, if you see the chapter of mixing, one solved example is given, and this is the same example which they have taken from that book, okay. So for equal rate of mass transfer, what is the logic? Rate of mass transfer means molecular transport. So here in the mixing tank, molecular transport will be, see, if you know the mass transfer, then you must know that mass transfer take place due to concentration difference. That is the natural mass transfer. But second thing is dispersion. Okay, if you know the diffusion and dispersion. Diffusion is transport of molecules from high concentration to low concentration. Dispersion is distribution of molecules due to forced external forces. Okay, as in heat transfer we talk about the natural convection and forced convection. So here we are using impeller. So obviously if we are using impeller, so forced convection will be there. Forced convection means the mass transfer, rate of mass transfer, whatever diffusion is taking place inside the tank will be affected by the impeller speed. Okay, so for equal rate of mass transfer, whatever power we are supplying to impeller speed, that will affect the impeller speed. And if impeller speed changes, the forced convection, the rate of mass transfer will also changes. As you know, if impeller is stopped, no movement, so mass transfer will take place due to driving forces only. Like if you add sugar in tea, so sugar will dissolve in tea based on the driving forces only. But if you stir that, if you agitate the tea and sugar mixture, then the rate of mass transfer, the dissolution of sugar in tea will take place with higher rate as mass transfer rate will increase. Okay, I hope you understand this point. Okay, so just like the ceiling fan, if you on the regulator, if you set the regulator on level 2, the ceiling fan will have some speed and electric current power supply will be according to that. If you increase the level on regulator from 2 to 5, suppose, so fan speed will increase, so power supply will also increase. Okay, and fan speed increases, movement of air, mass transfer will also increase. Okay, as what we do during winters or rainy season to dry the cloth with a faster rate, ASAP, we switch on the fan with full speed. Okay, in the room. Condition is no one should be there inside the room, because otherwise you will feel cold. Heat transfer will also increase as in that case. Okay, anyways, if I am talking about, here we are talking about the mass transfer. So the thing is, obviously we cannot compare the impeller speed directly, and we cannot compare the power required directly as well, because the volume of the mixture in both the tanks are different. Okay, if volume of the mixture is same, then we can compare that directly, but here it is different. So for equal rate of mass transfer, there is a thing which you should know, that power supplied, power required for mixing, or power consumption for mixing per unit volume of mixture should be constant. Okay, that is the kinematic similarity. Okay, I hope you must have attended that lecture of dimensional analysis and similitude. So you must know about the kinematic similarity as well, and the dynamic similarity. Dynamic similarity is basically the dimensionless number should be same. Okay, anyways, so power supplied, power required for mixing per unit volume of the mixture or the tank should be constant. So here if you see, in first case, sorry, for it is given that for high Reynolds number, means for turbulent flow regime. So for turbulent flow regime, we know that power number is constant. So P is proportional to n cube di power 5, and we know that for a standard cylinder, volume is proportional to d power 3. So P by V, I am saying that for equal rate of mass transfer, P upon V has to be same. Means P upon V for the first tank and P upon V for the second tank has to be same. So if you put the values, it will be N1 di1 power N1 cube di1 power 5 upon d1 cube is equal to N2 cube di2 power 5 upon d2 cube. Okay, so from here you will get a ratio of N1 upon N2 power 3 is equal to di2 upon di1 power 5 d1 upon d2 power 3. And we know that di2 upon di1 equal to d2 by d1. So you can replace that, and when you solve, you will get N1 upon N2 is equal to d2 upon d1 power 2 by 3. That is option D. So is it clear? The question number 44. Yes, okay, wonderful. So now let's start our discussion about the topic sedimentation. So in sedimentation, first you should know the meaning of 2-3 terminologies. I hope you understand. First is suspension, second is settling. Suspension means, see, this is the bottle. Let's add some sand particles here, mix and mix it, shake it. So you will see initially all the sand particles will move here and there. Some are moving upwards, some are moving downwards, some left, some right. A random distribution, random movement of the particles will be there. So in that case, this is called suspension. When all the solid particles are moving here and there in random direction. Okay, but if you keep this bottle on a flat surface for a longer duration, so you will see all the effect of external forces will be neglected, they will become zero, nullify, and only gravity force will act on the bottle. And because of the gravity force, all particles will start to settle down, means all particles will start to move vertically downwards. And when all the solid particles are moving in same direction, that is called settling. That same direction could be vertically downward, horizontally left or right, it could be anything, or vertically upward as well. Okay, this is called settling. That should be clear in your mind. Settling doesn't mean that particles are moving downward only. No, all solid particles are moving in same direction. It could be any, okay, depending on the process. So that is called settling. Okay. So here when we talk about the sedimentation, one important parameter comes in the picture, that is called terminal settling velocity, also known as terminal velocity. Can be denoted by Vt. Okay, what is terminal velocity? See, terminal velocity means, suppose you have a bike or car, whatever you like, whatever you can drive, you can imagine that, or even a scooter, a scooty, whatever it is, or cycle. So every vehicle will have a certain maximum speed. Okay, like if I talk about the normal bikes in our country, so the maximum speed at which they can run are about 120, 140. Means I'm talking about Passion, Splendor, those kind of bikes. Okay, if these are some heavy bikes like Harley Davidson or Bullet, they can move at a speed 180, 200 as well. Okay, depending on the situation uh, and their capacity, engine capacity. Anyways, so I hope you understand the maximum speed. Okay, the upper limit. Suppose if the road is empty, no traffic, no person, no one is there, and no speed breaker. Roads are made up of very good concrete material. Okay, no crater, no gadda, kuch bhi nahi hai. Everything is a smooth surface, perfect. Okay, and no sharp turn, no long turn, nothing. It is a straight road. Okay, of infinite height, infinite kilometer, infinite length actually, not height. So when you are moving your bike, car, scooty or cycle, whatever it is, you will start with 0 speed, then 20, 40, 60, 80, 120, 140, suppose 140. The maximum speed is 140. And your engine, your bike is, or vehicle, whatever it is not supporting the higher speed than that. Okay, so the maximum speed, that is the speed of your vehicle is increasing from initial point, and the maximum speed at which it is running, that is constant. Okay, it cannot go above and it is not decreasing. अब खाली रोड है, क्यों डिक्रीज करना when we know no traffic and no कोई बच्चा भी सामने नहीं आने वाला. ठीक है, so you will drive your vehicle at maximum speed. So that maximum speed which you can achieve on the empty road, that is constant, is called terminal velocity. Okay, similarly, when a particle is settling, means falling down in a column of infinite height, suppose free falling is there, the initial velocity is 0. So from first equation of motion we know that u is equal to u plus at. Suppose as u is 0, so v will be equal to at. As particle is falling down, until acceleration is there, velocity will keep on increasing. Okay, the moment this acceleration becomes 0, v will become constant. Okay, and that constant and maximum velocity achievable by the particle in a medium when it is falling down or settling is taking place, that is called terminal velocity, terminal settling velocity of the particle. Okay, and why acceleration is 0? Because here we have some medium, some fluid particles are there, suppose water, air, whatever it is. Okay, so when a particle is settling down, so this fluid will exert some resisting force on this particle. Obviously fluid will try to oppose the movement of that particle. Okay, so normally buoyancy force and drag force will act here. Okay, so as opposing forces are there, particle is falling down. As particle will move downward, the the magnitude of resisting forces will increase. Okay, and there will be a moment when the gravity force acting on the particle will be same as the resisting force acting on the particle. The gravity force of the particle, weight of the particle will become equals the resisting force. In that case, the acceleration will become 0. Okay, why? If you know the Newton's second law of motion, then you must know that sum of net forces will be directly proportional to the rate of momentum transfer. Okay, and mass of any particle will remain constant, law of conservation of mass. Okay, so you can take out m common, so it will become dv by dt. What is dv by dt? That is acceleration. I hope you know that. Okay, so when all the forces are balanced, this will become 0, so rate of momentum change will become 0, means acceleration will become 0. So the velocity particle which has achieved, the maximum velocity which this particle has achieved will be the terminal velocity, and the remaining journey particle will travel with the same velocity until and unless the fluid medium and those conditions are same. Okay, so this is called terminal settling velocity. And I hope that is clear to you, this concept. and the terminal settling velocity which is acting on the particle, or the terminal settling velocity of any particle in a fluid, you can calculate easily by doing some force balance. Okay, so suppose we have a particle, a spherical particle obviously, settling in a fluid. The obviously gravity force will act. Buoyancy force is the lift force, it will act in the upward direction. अबे क्या हो गया भाई? Okay, and drag force will also be there, and I hope you understand the meaning of drag force. Okay, suppose a fluid is flowing in certain direction, and if you place any object, any solid particle or any other thing in the path of the fluid movement, so what will happen? The fluid will try to push the particle in the direction of flow, and this push, this force is known as the drag force. Okay, and what is the direction of drag force? Obviously, the direction of drag force will be the direction of flow in which the fluid is flowing. Okay, that is the drag force. So here we are talking about the still medium, means the fluid is not moving, it is still. Okay, stationary. And if fluid is stationary, then how can we identify the direction of drag force? It's simple. Just consider this particle as a reference, as a frame of reference. So if you consider the particle as a frame of reference, means you are sitting on a particle as an observer, then you will see particle is moving downward. Okay, but when you are sitting on the particle, you will see that you are not moving, particle is not moving, but the fluid particles are going in upward direction. Just like we are sitting in a train and we see all trees are going in backward direction. Okay, same logic. Although, okay, so that's why we can say that drag force is acting in upward direction as fluid particles are moving upward. Okay, so it's very easy to identify the direction of drag force. The simple thing is you should know the direction of drag force will always be in the direction of fluid flow. Okay, so in this case, when you apply the force balance, so you will see that rate of change of momentum transfer from Newton's second law will be equal to the sum of forces acting on the particle. As particle is moving downward, so obviously we will take the directions, the sign accordingly. Okay, so it will be like this. Here the drag force will be CD AP rho F V square upon 2. What is V? You should understand this V is velocity of particle within the fluid. Okay, means the relative velocity of particle, and I hope you know how to calculate the relative velocities. Okay, relative velocity will always be V1 minus V2. Okay, like if particle is moving like this, fluid is stationary, then means V2 is the velocity of fluid, that is stationary, so it will be 0. So velocity of particle within the fluid will be same as the velocity of particle, V1. Okay, if fluid is moving upward with a certain velocity V2. Okay, so here the relative velocity of particle will be V1. Since V2, fluid velocity is opposite to the direction of particle, so it will be minus of V2. Okay, so minus minus will become plus, it will be V1 plus V2. If fluid is moving downward, it is in the same direction as particle, so relative velocity will be simply V1 minus V2. Okay, so I hope you understand the logic of relative velocity. This is the drag force. Now the buoyancy force. So what is the buoyancy force? See, buoyancy force is nothing but just the lift force. Okay, and what the magnitude of buoyancy force, the lift force, will be same as the weight of displaced fluid. Okay, displaced fluid. Okay, means when you place the particle in a fluid, the same volume as whatever volume of particle has, the same volume of fluid will be displaced, and the weight of that displaced fluid will be equal to the magnitude of buoyancy force. Okay, so weight of displaced fluid mf into g is the mass. We can mass as density into volume. And here we know that volume of fluid will be same as the volume of particle. And Vp is the volume of particle, which you can write it as mass of the particle to the density of particle. So that's how you can calculate the buoyancy force. And when you put all these values there, and you know that at terminal velocity means when V is equal to Vt, this value has to be 0. Okay. This value, rate of change of momentum transfer, will be 0. So when you equate them and do anything, you will get the terminal settling velocity as Vt is equal to square root of 2 mp g rho p minus rho f over cd ap rho f and rho p, where ap is the projected area of the particle, means that area of the particle which is first getting wet. Okay, so for a spherical particle, if you try to replace these values, understand, for a spherical particle only, mass over density can be written as volume. Volume of a spherical particle dp cube. The projected area of the spherical particle will be same as the cross sectional area, that will be pi by 4 dp square. So when you put this value here, your terminal settling velocity for a spherical particle will become like this. Where CD is the drag coefficient, that is the function of particle Reynolds number. So for different particle Reynolds number, CD will be different, and thus that equation, the final expression of terminal velocity will be different. That you can easily calculate from this curve between CD versus particle Reynolds number, and particle Reynolds number here defined as diameter of particle, density of fluid, relative velocity of particle in the fluid to the viscosity of fluid. This value 10 to the power minus 1, this value 10 to the power 3, this value 10 to the power 5. This is first regime, second regime, third regime, fourth regime. Okay, first regime, also known as laminar flow regime, also known as Stokes flow regime or low Reynolds number regime. Here you can see CD is inversely proportional to particle Reynolds number, and that is CD is equal to 24 upon NREP. Okay, NREP is this. So just understand, V is the velocity of particle within the fluid. If particle is moving at terminal velocity, then this V will be equal to Vt. If particle is moving at any other velocity, then this V will be that. Okay, so it is the velocity of particle only. So if particle is moving at terminal velocity, this V will become Vt, and when you put this value here, then the terminal velocity formula will become like this. Okay, so put this value here, CD is equal to 24 over NREP, NREP is this, V will become Vt here obviously as particle is moving at terminal velocity. So when you rearrange this, you will get Vt equal to dp square g rho p minus rho f upon 18 mu f. This is the Stokes flow regime. Second regime is transition flow regime. If someone asks you what is the maximum, what will be the maximum value of terminal, what will be the maximum value of particle Reynolds number in Stokes law regime? What will you say? In Stokes law regime, the maximum value of particle Reynolds number will be what? What will you say? This quick revision class is not for me, it's for you. So if you guys don't participate, then there is no use of having this kind of class. अतुल, अरे वाह, बहुत सालों बाद इसका मैसेज देखा मैंने. So you guys are not interested in replying, okay, no problem. I am concluding this topic here. So if you guys require the further discussion about the quick revision class for mechanical operation, तो आप mention कर देना. We will have the quick revision class of ammo for the remaining topic. ठीक है. अब आप interested नहीं हो तो मैं ये class लेकर भी कोई फायदा नहीं है. I am not interested. So that's all for the day. See you. Tada.